guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to show you the top tips so that you can get the most out of your iPhone. So let's get started. The first tip I'm going to talk about is going to be about Wi-Fi assist. So you head into settings, get into mobile data, scroll the way down, you'll see the option which says Wi-Fi assist. So if this is on, what it does is if you have a poor Wi-Fi connectivity, it's going to switch over to mobile data. And you will not get any notification when it switches over to mobile data. So this is really helpful for those of us who are on limited internet packages. So if you're on a limited plan, I highly suggest you switch off Wi-Fi assist, because when you set up your iPhone brand new, by default Wi-Fi assist is turned on. So if you're on a limited plan, I highly suggest you switch it off. So the next one is going to be about night shift. Again, settings, display and brightness. Here you have night shift. As you can see, I've scheduled it right now. You can either do a sunset to sunrise, or you can custom schedule it towards the times. I prefer sunset to sunrise as it's really easy. So it starts around 7 p.m. and it switches off by around 6 a.m. in the morning. So I don't have to worry about night shift. Also, another thing with night shift is if you enable it right now, you can manually choose the intensity of the color temperature of the yellow tinge on the display. As you can see, this is less warm. This is the standard, this normal default mid. I usually keep it towards the more warm, as I like this yellow tinge on the display. It's just my preference. So that's night shift. Let's move on to passwords. Now by default, Apple allows you to set a 4-digit or a 6-digit password, but you also have the option to select an alphanumeric password. So I have made a alphanumeric password. So if you lock your phone and if you try to enter the password, you get this screen. So my password is iPhone 5s. There it is, and it's unlocked. So I'm going to show you how you can set that. All you have to do is settings, Touch ID and password, enter your password. Okay, now head over to change passcode. Again, enter your password. Alright, now once you come to enter a new password, you can either do a 6-digit PIN or a 4-digit PIN. When you click passcode options, you'll get this option, custom alphanumeric code. Click that, or you can also do a custom just a numeric code. So if you enter this, then you have the option to make your new passcode. So that's with alphanumeric passcodes. And yes, alphanumeric passcodes are a little more secure than just a numeric passcode. So that's an option on the iPhone. All right, now let's move on to emergency SOS. This is a really good feature, and I'm really glad that Apple introduced this. It's really helpful. So emergency SOS is within the settings, just below Touch ID and passcode. I highly recommend that all of you enable emergency SOS. So you have the option, as you can see, the diagram is to click the sleep wake button 3 or 5 times. I have kept it to 3 times, and you have this option to auto call. So what this does is, if you click the button 3 times, it's going to auto call emergency contacts. So 1, 2, 3. As you can see, emergency SOS. So it's going to call them, and this is based on your country. Okay, this is based on your country, and also if you like, you can have a custom sound. And I also highly recommend you set up emergency contacts within the Health app. So what it does is, once you enable the emergency SOS with this click of the home of the power key, what it does is it's going to call emergency services first. After the call with emergency services, it's going to call your emergency contacts. For example, mine are mom and dad. So once it calls the police or emergency contact, then it's going to call mom and dad. So I highly recommend you enable emergency contact. It's really useful. The next one is using Touch ID for iTunes and the App Store. So all you have to do is, again, open iTunes, Touch ID and password. Okay, and you have to enable iTunes and App Store. So once you enable this, enter your password right here. And what this allows you to do is when you head into the App Store and when you download an app, a new app which you haven't downloaded before, for example, we could download Game of the Day. When you click Get, rather than asking you to enter your passcode, it's going to ask you to authenticate. As you can see, this pop-up pops up. When I click install, it's going to ask me for my password. But whereas once you enable Touch ID in the iTunes Store and the App Store, rather than entering a password, you get a pop-up where it says, would you like to authenticate using Touch ID? All you have to do is place your finger on the Touch ID sensor and you're done. The app is going to install. So that's really handy, really easy. You don't have to remember any of your passwords. So that's a really good feature that Apple's implemented. So the next one is a new feature which Apple implemented just recently in iOS 11. That's offload unused apps. So all you have to do is get into general, open iPhone storage, and here you get the option to offload unused apps. These are recommendations by the phone in order to help you manage your storage better. As you can see, I can save 83.4 MB if I use iCloud Photo Library. Also, it's suggesting me to use offload unused apps. So what this does is that the phone monitors your most used apps, and when it finds a couple of apps which are not used often or regularly, it suggests you to offload them. So what happens is your data is preserved on the apps, but the apps are taken off the phone. So the apps reside on the cloud and your data is within the app. So in case you need to use the app again, all you have to do is install the app and your data will resync with the app. You don't have to worry, your data will not be erased. Once you enable offload unused apps, it's all going to just offload the app from the phone. When you need the app again in the future, all you have to do is re-download the app and your data will resync. But I don't use offload unused apps a lot since I'm not having an issue with storage. Even though this is just a 16 gigabyte iPhone, I'm able to manage. But this is a handy option for those of you who have 16 gigabytes or even a 32 or 64 gigabytes and are having issues with storage. So that's offloads unused apps. Another one of my favorite features is announce calls. So the iPhone has a feature, for example, when a call comes in, if you have stored the contact as dad, it's going to announce that dad is calling or mom is calling. Whereas if you get a call that is coming in and you do not have it stored within your contacts, it's going to say unknown caller. So that's really handy, since you don't have to pick up your phone to look at who's calling. All you just have to because once it announces, you're just going to know who's calling and you can make up a mind of whether you want to pick the call or not. So I'm going to show you how to enable announce calls. By default, it's not enabled. So all you have to do is head into settings, scroll down to phone. Here you have the option under calls which says announce calls. So I've kept it always. You have the option to also keep it under headphones in the car or headphones or never. By default, it's I think on headphones in car, but I recommend you keep it on always. So whenever you get an incoming phone call, it's going to announce who's calling. So that's really helpful. All right, the next one is this option, calls on nearby devices, calls on other devices, sorry. So other devices in the sense other Apple devices. So these are all my Apple devices that are synced with my iCloud account. So what this does is, provided all these devices are connected to the same Wi-Fi, including this primary device. So what this does is, when I receive a call on this iPhone could be in my room and any of these devices could be down in the hall. So as long as both of these devices are connected to the same Wi-Fi network, when I receive a call on this, my primary device, the same call is transferred across all these devices. So I can just pick up any of these devices and answer the call. I don't have to come and pick up this phone itself. So that's really good. This is really helpful if you have two iPhones or an iPhone and an iPad, because this uses Apple's continuity feature, so it's really great. So since I have a lot of Apple devices, it's really useful for me. So I don't have to come and pick up the call from this device. I can pick up the call from any of these devices. So that is calls on nearby devices. Next one is a couple of settings within Safari. So get in Settings app, open Safari. Here you have the option to change your search engine. By default, it's Google. So you guys can choose. I like to keep it on Google. You have the option to go to Bing or Yahoo or DuckDuckGo as well. Um, and also a really good feature which I came across recently was uh, you have camera and microphone access, which is really good for privacy and security. So if you're a little paranoid of whether websites are accessing your camera or microphone without you knowing, you can disable this feature. So that's your choice. Also, you also have this option, ask websites not to track me. By default, this option is on. So if you are concerned of whether websites are tracking you, I highly recommend you turn this on as well. So that's with Safari. Also, I'm sure many of you know this, but when you get into Safari, if you're going to read an article, let's go to The Verge. Yeah, let's get into The Verge. Let's open an article, and I'm going to show you reading mode. I'm sure many of us know what's reading mode. As you can see now, the website's loading, and as you just saw, the status bar, the address bar said reader view available, and you see this little menu icon. All you have to do is click the icon, and it's done. You just get plain text without any word formatting or any graphics or anything. It's just a simple mode for you to read without all of the ads and all of the formatting and the colors and everything. So that's a really good feature. I use it a lot, especially when you just want to read stuff without getting interrupted by ads or pop-ups. All you just have to do is click this button on the left of the address bar, which symbolizing reading mode, and it's done. So you get your content which you'd love to read with just a plain white background and black text without any pop-ups or without any formatting of words or anything. So that's a really handy feature and really useful for those of you who love to read. So that's reading mode. All right, next let's head into camera. Again, settings, and come down to camera. Here you have a couple of options. iOS 11 introduced the option to scan QR codes. So if you got a QR code, all you have to do is open your camera app and point the camera app towards the QR code, and it's going to scan the QR code and take you to the link. So don't worry, this is on by default, so it's not a problem. Also, if you were wondering where do we go to change settings for video and things like that, you just have to come here, again camera, and you have the option to record at 720p HD at 30 or 1080p HD at 30. By default it's on 1080p, but do note that 1080p could take up a 130 MB and 720 60, so that's your choice on how you would like to manage your storage. I usually keep it at 1080p, but as I said, I don't shoot a lot of videos, so it's not an issue for me. Also, you have this option for grid. So grid just creates a grid within the camera interface. As you can see, you have this grid within the camera interface. So that's what grid does. It's pretty helpful when you are trying to take a precise shot. Would you like your subject to be within the grid? So it's pretty helpful with that. Also, again, in camera, you have this option which is on by default. I switched it off. I really hate this option. It says keep normal photo. So what this does, let me just turn it on. So what this does is that when you head into your camera app and when you enable HDR to on, so I'm gonna take a photo. Okay, I've taken the photo. Now let's head into the Photos app. Rather than clicking one photo, the phone will take two photos. The first is just a normal photo, and the second is an HDR photo. As you can see, it's an HDR photo. The first one is just a normal photo. So this is okay as long as you have a higher storage capacity device, but if you're on a 16 gigabyte device, it's really going to fill up storage like crazy. So I highly recommend you hop over to settings under camera and disable keep normal photo, because this option is on by default, and every time you click an HDR you will be clicking two photos even if you click the shutter just once. So that's a option I highly recommend you disable in case you're on a lower storage model. Also, there's a last option you can see, and it says preserve settings. So preserve settings, all it does is, for example, you're in the camera and you want to shoot a slow-mo video, okay? Uh, and Now every time I close the camera app, it's gonna default and it's gonna get back to slow-mo, or sometimes it even gets back to photo. So what this preserve settings option does is that it allows you to keep a particular camera mode on and a particular filter on, so it doesn't default back to its normal settings. So that's with camera. Okay, the next one is with accessibility. Again, head into settings and general and accessibility. Okay, now under accessibility you have a couple of options. So magnifier, by default it's off. I recommend you turn it on. I'll show you why. So once magnifier is on, go down and you will find accessibility shortcut. Click this and you have a couple of options, but I always love to keep it on magnifier. What this does is it allows you to zoom in more than a normal zoom which the camera allows. For example, this is the photo, and let's just zoom. You can zoom a bit. You can't zoom entirely, you can zoom a bit. For example, let's just zoom at this. All right, you can zoom a bit. Now with magnifier, all you have to do is triple click the home button. So 1 2 3, and it opens magnifier. Now you can zoom more than what the camera allowed you to zoom. That, do you see that? You can zoom a bit more than what the normal camera app allows you to do that. So I find this really helpful, especially if you are trying to read really small text, or if you're trying to focus on a subject really far. Magnifier really is pretty helpful. But do note, if you're going to zoom using magnifier, you will lose a lot of photo clarity. As you can see, it's already pixelating. I wouldn't recommend clicking photos using magnifier. I just recommend using the normal camera app. So that's just an option with magnifier, just if you would like to enlarge to view a little bit of small letters or a subject at a far distance. So that's magnifier. Great. All right, now let's get into general accessibility, and let's move on to smart invert. All over the internet, I've seen a lot of people ask Apple of when the iPhone will get a dark mode, since the iPhone 10 has OLED, and the dark mode would be an amazing addition, and it's high time since iOS gets a dark mode. Apple hasn't given us dark mode as of now. We were expecting it in iOS 11, but not so sure, maybe in 12. But for the time being, we have an option. We can get dark mode on this phone, but it isn't true dark mode. It isn't quite cooked, if you know what I mean. So I'll just show you how to enable that. You have to go to settings, general accessibility, and get into display accommodations, and here you have invert colors. Click invert colors, select smart invert. So as you can see, smart invert doesn't invert all the colors the way classic invert does. I'll just show you. So once you click smart invert, your control center goes a little darker. Notifications become a little darker as well. How about yes, everything becomes dark. As you can see, now your phone has a bit of dark mode. Even calendar, all over the system apps become dark, but your photos do not become, your photos do not invert colors, so your photos are fine. But the reason I do not use this, or I do not recommend you use it every single day, is because it isn't so smooth. As you can see, you have a little bit of lag and choppiness all over the device once you enable smart invert. I suggest you use this during the night. If you do not like using night shift, you could use this during the night. But overall, throughout the day, I wouldn't suggest it because it's not quite as smooth as using it with a white background. So that is smart invert. I'm going to show you what happens if you choose classic invert. So smart invert is this. If you choose classic invert, what happens, it's going to invert the colors throughout the OS. So it's barely usable. I mean, you can use it in a couple of apps. As you can see, my face there has inverted. So it's going to invert images as well. So if you really want a dark mode and you're really keen on using it, I highly recommend you use smart invert. All right, so that's done. Now another cool feature, a really useful feature, is assistive touch. Again, it's under accessibility. So all you have to do is assistive touch. I guess many of us use assistive touch and many of us know about it, but for those of you who do not, just enable assistive touch. So all this is it acts like a virtual home button. So in case you have a broken home button or it's stuck or things like that, you can still use your phone, you can still navigate through it. For example, we're in the settings app now. If you want to go home, just click home. Yeah, click home and you're going home. Also, you have various options. You can bring down notification center. You can call Siri up, or you can also access the control center in case you have a problem with the touch sensitivity of the display. Sorry about that. So if in case you have an issue with the display, if the display is cracked, you can still use assistive touch, bring up control center and do what you want. Also, you have more options. If you click device, you can either lock the screen, rotate the screen volume up and down in case your volume side rockers aren't working. You can also mute and unmute the device. Or if you even click more, in case you have a broken power button, you can still enable emergency SOS. You can still take a screenshot. If either of your buttons do not work, you can still enter multitasking. And also you have this option to restart your iPhone. So if you did not know how to restart your iPhone, all you have to do is enable assistive touch, head into device, more, and restart. So that's assistive touch. And the final option I'm going to show you is rest finger to open. So recently on iOS 10, Apple took away slide to unlock. So when you have to unlock your phone, you got to press the home button. It says pressed open. So by default, this option is not enabled. So it is under here. Again, let me just show you general accessibility. Come down to home button, come all the way down. By default, this feature isn't enabled. So when it's not enabled, once you unlock your phone, it will still be on the lock screen. It says press, you got to press. So if you do not like this, if you'd like to go back to the normal, just holding your finger, authenticate and get in, you don't have to press it. Well, then you can enable this option. This option is really good. So again, as I showed you, come down home button, scroll the way down, and you will find rest finger to open. Click rest finger to open and it's done. Now, when you unlock your device, all you just have to do is keep your finger on the Touch ID button. Don't press it, just let it authenticate and you will unlock the device, just like the old days. So it's a really handy feature. In case you guys didn't know, that's how to enable it. So that's it, guys. I hope you liked the video. I hope these tips enable you to get the most out of your iPhone and improve your iPhone experience. So please do subscribe and like. I hope you like the video and I'll see you in my next one.